Hi crafty friends, welcome back to Jessie Kate Creates. I'm Jessica and today's video is going to be a project share. This is one of those videos that I initially filmed a tutorial for, but it just had really bad footage, so instead this is just going to be a project share. I also apologize, there's construction happening outside my window, so sorry for any of those construction noises in the background. But before I share the card today, because it is a little bit different, I figured I'd talk to you a little bit about what inspired these cards. So I have some slimline cards that I made mid-January, and I was really thinking about, you know, in January at the start of the year, a lot of us sit down and we make New Year's resolutions, or we have a word of the year that we want to guide us and focus us throughout the year. And I'm so curious, are you more of like a resolution type person, or do you like word of the year more? I'm more of like a word of the year type person, but I'm curious about all of you. Let me know in the comments down below. But if you guys are like me and my friends and family, then as February rolls around and March rolls around, it gets a lot harder to keep up with those resolutions or to live your life really focused by your word of the year to achieve or cultivate or experience, you know, whatever it is that you're hoping to get from the year. And so I wanted to make some cards that could help some of my friends really stay focused. So I have some friends who pick a word of the year every year, and I wanted to make them something that they could set on their desk, maybe on the mantle or frame and put on the wall, something that could almost serve like home decor to help keep them guided and focused throughout the year. So that's the inspiration behind these cards. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera around and I will show you the cards and talk a little bit about my process and the supplies that I use to make them. Okay, so these are the cards. Like I said before, these are slimline cards. And I guess let's start by talking about the backgrounds for both of these cards. So for these cards, I made some alcohol ink backgrounds that, in all honesty, they didn't really turn out how I had initially planned. I was following a tutorial, which I will have linked down in the description box below. And my alcohol ink backgrounds did not turn out like the tutorial, but I'm still really happy with how they ended up. I find that happens a lot in crafting sometimes. We don't get the look that we were initially going for, but we still really like what we get, right? So for the backgrounds, I used a couple different inks. Both my friends are really into the kind of black, white, gold aesthetic. So I used this Bria Rose Mars Black Alcohol ink. And I also used this Ranger Mixative in gold. To make the backgrounds, I also used some Ranger Alcohol Blending Solution. And I have it's just a little squirt bottle that I've filled with like 91% rubbing alcohol, and I use that as well. For my paper, I did not have any Yupo on hand, but I did have some poster board paper from the Dollar Tree, and I've seen other people use that for alcohol ink. So I used the shiny side of the poster board to make these backgrounds, and I think that worked out pretty well. Sometimes with alcohol ink, I've noticed that it can rub off, especially if you use too much of it, like a little bit of residue can rub off onto your fingers. And I really wanted to prevent that on my backgrounds. So what I did, in my stash, I have this Kmart varnish, and I just sprayed that onto my backgrounds before I cut them down to size. That way there'd be a barrier so I don't have to worry about any ink rubbing off onto anyone's fingers when they handle the card. Now for the sentiments on the cards themselves, these were the words of the year that my friends chose. And they're kind of uncommon words. maybe not so much worthy, but definitely Sedona. So to make the backgrounds, I went into my stash and I pulled out an alphabet die. And I have this one here, which is from Momenta. It is their 1.5 inch alphabet. I bought these at Tuesday Morning a few years back. I think it's really awesome to have alphabet dies in your stash for exactly this reason. When you have alphabet dies or even alphabet stamps, you can create any sentiment that you want. Because if I was looking specifically for a die that had the word worthy or Sedona, like I wouldn't find that. You know, I'm not going to go to any online stamp shop and see that somewhere. But because I had my alphabet dies, I could create the words that I wanted. Now for the sentiments, to add a little bit more interest and texture to the card, I stacked my die cuts. I hope you can see that there is a little bit of dimension. So what I did, I cut out 3 layers of white and then 1 layer of gold, and I stacked them all together to give me that dimension on the card. I think this also could have looked really cool if I had used black cardstock for the layering pieces, but I don't think it really makes too much of a difference here. Now, one of the hardest things for this card was getting the letters straight. And so what I ended up doing, once I had all of my gold letters created, I very carefully lined them up on my glass mat. Once I had all of my letters lined up onto my mat, I used some low-tack tape. This is just blue painter's tape. And I just used it to pick up all of the letters. And then I, just put some dabs of glue on the back of the letters. And then I was able to bring it over to my backgrounds and just, adhere those down. I left the tape on for a while so that the glue would have time to adhere before I peeled it off. And that's how that's how I got the sentiments straight onto my cards. Now on the day that I made these cards, I could not be bothered to measure anything. Like I didn't feel like it. It wasn't what was in the stars for me on that day. So instead, I grabbed the size of envelope that I knew the card needed to fit into. This is just a number 10 envelope. And when I cut down the card base, I just made sure that it was small enough to fit inside a number 10 envelope. And then I did a gold matting layer for the background, and then I put all of that down onto a black 110-pound card base. Now this is the first card I made, and after I made this one, I realized that I actually could have made my card a little bit bigger. So for the second card, I did make it slightly bigger. I think this one is roughly 9 by 3 3/4. It's about that. And this one, I think it's about 1/4 of an inch bigger. So this one is 9 1/4 by 4 inches. Just because, like I said, I realized there was more, I could make it bigger and it would still fit in the envelope. So that's what I did. And so for this one, I just did an extra matting layer. So I did the gold cardstock. That's the same cardstock I used for the sentiment. I did a black layer, and then I put all of this onto a white card base. And I wanted the inside of these cards to be just as kind of luxe and dramatic as the front of the cards. So for the inside of the cards, I did a white piece of cardstock and I matted it with, again, the same gold I used on the front of the card, and then stuck that down to the inside. So there's plenty of room for me to write a nice heartfelt sentiment to my friends. And I think they both look really, really nice. And I hope these look nice enough that my friends will consider well, I know they will. That's why I'm making them these cards. I know they'll put these out on display. Now, if you see these cards and you really like them, but you don't like doing alcohol ink, or you don't have the supplies to do that, fret not. Nowadays, there are a lot of companies that have come out with modern papers that look like alcohol ink. So this is just one example that I have in my stash. This is from Momenta. I've used this for at least one other project on my channel before, and I will go ahead and link that up here. So you can always get pattern paper that looks like alcohol ink. I also know that Craft Consortium has some pattern papers like that. I know Stampin' Up! Had pattern papers like that for a while. I don't know if they still do or if those are retired at this point. But if you look around, you can definitely find alcohol ink pattern papers. And the other option is maybe you don't use an alcohol ink background at all. Maybe you just use like a floral piece of pattern paper or a geometric print. I think would be really, really cool and really fun too. So those are the cards for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please go ahead and like the video. That helps other people to find it, and it also just tells YouTube that you like my channel. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful and crafty day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!